Hello, Jocelyn Sia here. Welcome back to a very special episode of Ladies Who Bond. It's Pride Month! And to celebrate, joining me today is the amazing, beautiful Spencie Dontremont.
You got it.
Welcome! Welcome, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Hi, Jocelyn, and happy Pride Month. And thank you so much for inviting me on today.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited. Some of this is a little bit selfish because I've been wanting to just sit down and talk to you. So it's
Oh,
mostly for me.
oh,
No,
I,
no.
I feel very honored. Thank you so much.
For those who don't know Spencie, she is mainly on Instagram at Spencie Maria, and it is full of beautiful photos, and fashion and Bond cosplay. I know that you are a huge Bond fan, and like I said, we've been following each other for a long time, so I'm really excited to get to know you. Um, so let's kick it off. I would love to know what is your first introduction to Bond.
My first introduction to Bond, interestingly enough, was the 2002 GameCube game Nightfire.
Oh wow.
I had never heard of Bond, James Bond, the Bond franchise at all. And so at the time, I think I was probably around 7 or 8 years old. And I saw and I had, at the time, I was recently getting into playing video games because we had just bought a GameCube the year prior. And I saw the box art of Nightfire at a store. And on the cover, there was this beautiful Dominique Paradis, or just a Bond girl that I didn't know at the time. And I just really, when I was um, trying to get into playing more video games, I really liked it when there was a female representation in the game. So the fact that she was on the box art, I immediately was convinced to pick it up. And little did I know, it would have turned into this huge, uh, like this moment that I still cherish today because I have an even bigger love for the franchise now. And I just thought, well, if this beautiful woman is on the cover of the game, she's got to be integral to the story. And I did not expect to see women in gowns and heels running around in the Austrian snowy cliff tops. And I loved every minute of it. And that was my first introduction to Bond. And my mom said, oh, this game is actually based on a film franchise. And I immediately went to the movie rental store soon after, back when you could go and rent movies. And my first Bond film was Tomorrow Never Dies because I thought Wei Lin and Paris Carver looked very glamorous on the cover. I, as a kid, I was very like, oh, the cover looks nice. I want this. Like kind of not really judging a book by its cover, but it did turn out. It all turned out well because I enjoyed the experience. And I would say that the Brosnan era is the era that I was introduced to Bond in.
That's I think we're like about the same age, because Brosnan is also kind of how I got into Bond, visually. Uh, I have never played Nightfire before. Can you describe
So Nightfire, what I loved about it is even though it's a Bond game, the way you play it, it's a first person shooter, and I wasn't really playing shooters at the time or had like interest in playing like shooters or action shooters. It's just the fact that it was first person. You could actually you were the adventure. The adventure was what you made it because the newer Bond video games are in third person. So you see Bond running around, you see him do the action. In Nightfire, you're the hand that controls the guns, the gadgets, the cars, everything. It's essentially you. And the other characters that you see around you are the beautiful and glamorous Bond women. They're the showcase characters. They're the ones that you watch do all the action essentially, and I think that's pretty cool. The storyline is there's a lot going on. It definitely I think it takes some inspiration from quite a few films, and it kind of like it's all melded together. You have the vehicle from Die Another Day in it as kind of like the main Bond vehicle for that game, and Overall, I like the characters. Nightfire is a pretty diverse cast of characters, more than you usually see in the film series. Unfortunately, most of those characters do end up to be antagonists. Um, I still think they're pretty good representation because they are in the game a lot and they have a lot of screen time and they have a lot of dialogue and they're there and they're just very fun and I'm so glad that they exist. And if the plot or the campaign isn't for I played the multiplayer with my friends hundreds of times. You can only play as Bond in the main story, but in the multiplayer, you can play as all the characters in the game, including the NPCs, including characters from the film, which I thought was just a wonderful addition. The multiplayer is something I still feel very nostalgic about today. And I always picked Dominique Paradis when I was playing multiplayer because not only are you the hand with the gadget, you're like a hand with nail polish. So that was like a neat touch when you pick a female character.
Wow. So you kind of almost had like the GoldenEye 64 effect, but with Nightfire, pretty much.
I was born in '94, so GoldenEye was like right there, like right at the cusp of that time because the film got released in '95. And I think the game got released shortly after. So by the time I got into gaming, the 64 was at the end of its era and the GameCube was introduced. So my Bond games growing up were Nightfire and Agent Underfire. And I also absolutely love Agent Underfire. It's the prequel to Nightfire, but you don't have to play Agent Underfire to follow along what's happening in Nightfire. It just has Zoe Nightshade, which is a reoccurring Bond girl. But she's pretty self-explanatory in Nightfire. She's a CIA agent who helps Bond. But if you do want to play both, I would highly recommend it. Agent Underfire does sport a main female antagonist, which I'm all for it.
That's awesome. I need to catch up on video games. Like I played GoldenEye 64 and then I started high school. Well, I went into college. Like it was the end of my high school into college. So then I really didn't get the chance to play a lot of video games. So that sounds really fun.
It was
Do you still play them?
off and on. I actually didn't complete the final stage of Nightfire until 2 years ago. I would play through Nightfire so much and I played through all the levels, but there's just something about those, I think it was the last two stages actually, that just gave me a lot of trouble. And a couple of years ago, I'm like, I don't like that this game isn't finished. I completed Agent Underfire multiple times. I should be able to beat Nightfire. And I just sat down, hadn't played it for years. And I beat the second last stage, beat the last stage, and yeah, it felt great. It felt great to actually finish it. I did already know how the game ended, but I'm glad that I did officially complete it. Now, I never played Everything or Nothing, which is the game that succeeds Nightfire, or is the game that comes after it. I do own it. Like I did recently purchase it, and I'll probably will play it someday. But it's a game that I know mainly from my friends having it growing up. So I had Nightfire, and like most of my friends had Everything or Nothing. So I know what happens in that game, and I look forward to potentially playing it someday.
How excited are you for the new game coming out?
I'm so excited, especially if they could give us a little bit more teasers, a little bit more information. But to be honest, they can take as long as they need. I don't mind if like films or video games take a long time to make if the end result is going to be something I'm going to really enjoy. I don't need things to be like rushed out. I don't need to play it now. I don't need to play it like soon. Would I be interested in it someday? Absolutely. But I want it to be something that everyone can enjoy and I want them to just put a lot of love and effort into it. So that's something I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. I hope I think it's gonna be good because I mean it's is it IOI
Yeah,
Studios? Yeah. I've never played Hitman, but I mean everyone seems to be
yeah. I've never played it either, but it seems to be a pretty popular series. And yeah, I'm going to hope by them kind of taking their time with this, it means they're showing it a lot of love. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Watching this video back after the game gets released. We'll see.
Um, so the Bond fan community is very diverse. Despite what the average person might think, there is a good percentage of fans who identify as LGBTQ+. Would you be open to sharing with us a little bit about your personal journey?
Oh, absolutely. Um, it's actually true. The Bond community is a lot more diverse than a lot of people, and even myself, expected. And it's really kind of finding um, your niche in this, and that's when you realize that the Bond franchise is kind of for everyone because there's like 24 films, so it's going to relate to a lot of people because there's so many different adventure stories and characters. When it comes to my own personal journey, I I've always known that. So I'm a trans female, and I've always known that about myself, even before I had the vocabulary to know what I was feeling and how I identified. Even like I would say the moment I was cognizant, I would say the moment I was born I knew, but the moment I knew what things were, I was like, yeah, I'm a girl, or and I this that's who I am, and that's really truly um, who I know myself to be. And when I would play games or watch movies with these just very strong amazing female characters, it's not so much as I'd look at them and be like, I want to be them, or it was I looked at them and thought, I see myself in these people. I see, and especially that happened a lot with the Bond girls. Just the way they carry themselves, present themselves, and there's such a wide array of personalities. Some are quite confident and daring, and some are a little bit more um, they kind of help out on the sidelines, or sometimes they need rescuing, but sometimes they do the rescuing. There's just so much there to love, and I've definitely seen myself in a lot of those women. And um, so when would I came out pretty early. I would say by the time I was 14, when I really had the vocabulary to truly express to people like this is how I'm feeling, and this is who I am. I came out to my parents and my brother, or my family, at 14 years old. And fortunately for me, they were well aware of who I like. They knew who I was and were completely 100% supportive. I appreciate that so much. So it was really when I turned 21 that I knew that this was a decision I wanted to make for myself. That it was time to really show the world who I am, and I just love that I made that decision, and I'm so happy, and I absolutely love being trans. I love the experience and the journey that it has given me, and the appreciation I have for life, to just exist today as a trans woman. And once I came out to so everybody knew, like my entire family, all my friends, so much support, so much love, just so much. It warms my heart, even to this day, and I definitely I appreciate it so much that that is the experience that I was allowed, or that I have.
It sounds beautiful that you have such a supportive family. Like that is so crucial. Um, just having a positive family and a positive environment to be in so that you can flourish. I think a lot of people sometimes, you know, don't have that opportunity. And it's really frustrating to see it, because you just want to be who you are, and just be loved for who you are too.
At the end of the day, it's it's your own life. So do what makes you happy, and what makes you really feel like you are living the life the way you are meant to be living it. That being said, a support system is very crucial. I think all parents should really just embrace the just rainbow of people that that there that there's just so much potential in the world. And if your child comes out as LGBTQAA plus anything, to just realize that you have a unique human being in your life, and they're capable of wonderful things. Everybody, anybody is capable of wonderful things. And I think if people started to realize that, well, by not accept, I find when parents tend to not accept their children, they're also making their own lives more difficult. Because imagine how much more fulfilled they would be if they could truly be a part of their child's journey and their journey to be who they are. And I think that is very important. And having a loving and supportive support system like that means the world to me.
Yeah. Those are some great words of advice. I mean, you're right though. It's like the as soon as people are willing to accept, if parents are willing, I mean, it impacts a person, like, their child, and it impacts them for the rest of their lives. You never forget it, like good and bad. Um,
Fighting somebody on who they are will never make them any less who they are. You can being yourself is what you are placed on this earth to be your own unique self, and that goes for everybody.
yeah, yeah. Um, has the Bond franchise helped you with your transitional journey?
Interestingly enough, so I, as much as I've always had this adoration for the Bond franchise pretty much my entire life. And then it was really when so after I transitioned, after a few years later, so I work in the animation industry.
Oh,
And while I work, I like to listen to background music. And one day when I was trying to select music to listen to, I put on a playlist of all the James Bond movie theme songs. And I kind of instantly, like, I fell back into it. I fell back in love with the franchise. And it was just so bombastic. I remember Goldfinger really stood out to me. That is not a song that I listened to very much because it was an older film and it's not one that I've seen very much as a child. I think I may have viewed it once, but it really resonated as, like, wow, like, I this franchise is a little campy and I love it. Yeah, I just really like I do like the campiness of the Bond series as well. And another standout was Duran Duran's "A View to a Kill." When I listened to that while I was at work, I had it on loop for the rest of the day, and I think I listened to it for like 2 weeks straight. And and also the film A View to a Kill played in the theater that was downstairs of the studio I worked at. And I was super excited. And because they sometimes they used to do this uh, flashback film feature. So when they played A View to a Kill in theaters, I was there, and then the song came on, and like you've got to love that track. As far as how it's impacted my transition, once I started getting into the Bond series again, I started looking up like the Bond women the outfits or the garments that they wear in the film and the gowns and everything. And a character that really stood out to me was Domino, from a film from the 1965 film Thunderball. Now, Thunderball is not a film that I had watched yet at the time. So I would say I'm like 23 at this time, and I still had yet to watch all the Bond films. I'd seen the majority. I've seen Thunderball since, like I've seen it a couple of times. But she really stood out to me with that 60s iconography, and I'm like, I really just wanted to incorporate that into my style a little bit more. And so I found a dress that had that kind of black and white motif, because Domino is very black and white, like her swimsuits, her clothing. She has a very monochrome. timeless style. And when I found the dress, I felt like a Bond girl wearing it. I felt like Domino. And then I did a photo shoot, and that's really what sparked the idea. I want to do this again and again and again. I want to do more uh, cosplays. I want to do more Bond girl outfits, more ideas. So the ideas just kept going, and then I just and that's kind of how it turned into what it is today. It started out with me just kind of buying a dress that I thought looked a lot like something Domino would wear, and the did a photo shoot. I thought it was very fun, and here we are. And
That's
the
amazing.
costumes are a bit more. They get a little bit more elaborate as time goes on, because I really like to do just, and I'll also do like, I like to do like obscure characters as well. Like sometimes not even just the main Bond girls, like the ones that kind of have a little cameo, or they appear for like just a short amount of screen time. If they have an outfit that really popped and that really struck me as like, this is something I want to wear, then I love to incorporate that into my cosplays as well.
What are your favorites that you've done so far?
My favorite. So speaking of um, underrated Bond girls, BB Doll has to be one of my most favorite cosplays that I've done so far. It was such a fun outfit to wear. It was a very fun photo shoot. It was just like I was out in the snow. I was definitely like playing around. Because BB Doll, she's a very young Bond girl, so you really got to be quite playful, and you get to be you kind of act like a teenager in a way. And her outfit is just so extra. I absolutely loved her ski suit in the film. She's not in this film for very long, but that ski suit is the main thing I think of when I think of For Your Eyes Only. I absolutely love it. If I owned that actual suit in real life, I might just learn how to ski and then go ski. Another one of my favorites is Major Anya Amasova. Her maroon gown in like the matching kind of maroon fabric. They kind of look like cuffs in a way. That was also a very fun gown to wear, and it's a little bit more of it's the one that kind of hugs the bust, and then there's a piece of fabric that connects to the skirt. That one is a little like to wear it out in public, you really have to watch out for like a wardrobe malfunction. And that's what I was a little afraid of when I did that photo shoot. But everything stayed in place. I didn't even have to use any like fabric tape or anything. Um, and anytime I really get to do a Bond girl cosplay, like also on a boat or anything aquatic, are my favorites. I really love to do like aquatic themed Bond girls. And then we come down to my number one favorite cosplay I've ever done, and that would be 2006 Casino Royale Vesperlind black gown. The open back, iconic black gown of that film is my favorite, favorite cosplay that I've ever done. It's just a beautiful gown to wear. I always it just feels so glamorous, and that is actually the gown that was featured in Chris Wood's rendition of City of Lovers, his guitar cover, and that's the gown that I wear in that video. And any time I get to wear that gown is it's just so much fun. So that would be my favorite, my number one.
Oh, beautiful. It looks gorgeous on you. It's so pretty.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any future cosplays in plan?
I do. I certainly have future cosplays in mind. But as you know, I like to keep people on their toes. So I'm not going to say exactly who it is, but I will give you hints. So sometimes when I do Bond girls of a certain film, I usually wait a year or two, or sometimes I do it like soon after, but I'll do like the secondary Bond girl of that film. So I think most of my upcoming cosplays will be the secondary or the other Bond girl from a film of a cosplay I've already done. So if I did a Bond girl for a specific film, I think if I'm going to do photo shoots this summer, it'll be the other Bond girl of that film. So keep your eyes open for that.
Excited. I can't wait.
I'm excited to show you and to showcase that to everybody.
um, if you could have any Bond woman's closet, only one. Um,
And
only one. Whose closet would you want to have?
okay, if I had to pick only one, and I get to have their entire wardrobe, and that includes the gowns, the casual wear, the coats, the suits, the jewelry, the shoes, everything. I would have to go with Vesper Lind in Casino Royale, played by the beautiful Eva Green. Just everything she wears in that film, I think, would hold up today. Like the film was released in 2006, but I think even in 2021, a lot of those looks um, could be worn. And I think timeless pieces are very important to just have in a wardrobe. And I just absolutely adore her jewelry. I know you can actually purchase her jewelry. It's a little expensive, but if I could just have it all, that is the one I would select. The purple gown is the one I find maybe might look a little bit more like a 2006 gown, but you can't help but love it. It just that's the moment she comes in. That's the moment she walks into the casino and all eyes are on her. And to just have that gown in your possession would be just unreal, extraordinary. So she's the one I select. I have a bit of a part two to this question.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
I know you said only one.
That's fine.
I'm just going to point out that when it comes to another aspect of Bond, which is the swimwear, if somebody were to tell me if you could have any like like the swimwear or like a secondary wardrobe of the Bond franchise, I would have to pick Domino. Everything Domino wears, all her swimsuits, all her bikinis, everything she puts on has just a timeless yet also kind of retro chic feel to it. And I just love really chic bathing suits, and that would be like a secondary wardrobe I'd like to have. I want to own everything, and that includes everything Claudine Auger wore in the promotional images. So costumes that she wore that did not necessarily appear in the film. Pretty much anything Claudine Auger put on to represent Domino is something I would love to have in my possession, like in my wardrobe.
Those are very that's awesome. You'll have to show me. I don't know if I've seen any of the promotional outfits, so
I think a couple of them are there's one where she wears a very cute zebra print bikini that I don't actually think makes an appearance in the film itself, but it is in a lot of the promotional posters and artwork. And another swimsuit that she wears is that kind of like orange suit. Um, and I don't think that makes an appearance in the film either.
hmm.
Most of what she wears are her black, like the black and white bikini and the black bathing suits with like the headbands and the sheer like wrap, everything. Um, all of it. It's just so stunning, absolutely stunning. Oh, and the romper she wears at the end of the film, perfection, absolute perfection. She's just a stunning French beauty.
Oh. With the amount of cosplay and Bond women inspired outfits, I'm kind of curious how much of it has seeped into your daily life, like the Bond lifestyle and
the I would say I would say that it would be safe to say that a fair amount has kind of made its way into my everyday wardrobe. Perhaps not the the outfits that are worn in the films themselves, but I do like to incorporate a bit of that 1960s style essence into my wardrobe. which is quite Bond inspired and Bond girl inspired. When it comes to wearing the actual outfits that I wear in my cosplay photo shoots, a lot of them I kind of a lot of them tend to be gowns, so those are kind of saved for more formal events when we ever see more of those again. But the more casual garments, like the BB doll romper that I kind of took from the ski suit inspiration, and I kind of turned it more into kind of a the cosplay version I did. It looks a little bit more like a figure skating. It's still like wintry, but it's more youthful looking. And that romper can actually be worn. I wear it like as a summer piece. It's just a summer romper without all the extra, like without all the gloves and the tights and the turtleneck and everything. But when it comes to the Bond franchise or the lifestyle making its way into my daily life, I would say it's more of the essence rather than looking like the Bond girls themselves, because I also want it to have a touch of, I still want it to have myself, and I still want the outfits to feel like myself and something that is like my own unique. Yeah.
Um, so besides cosplay, and is there anything else that you're really into in the Bond with the Bond franchise?
Yes. I always had a fascination for the cars. I think the vehicles are amazing. I just like I've always liked cars, and just having all these different models in all the Bond films is just always a treat to watch. I also really love the gadgets. I I I really hope I know we live in this modern like tech. There's a more tech-based world, so gadgets are a little less not as impressive as probably they used to be in the 60s and the 70s. But I would like them to still make a return. I think the gadgets are just a key component to what makes the Bond franchise its own.
It's funny with the gadgets. I feel like we're at this point where I think Brosnan went too far, and then now we're at the Daniel Craig, and now there's like less and less and less. And with the advancement of technology, like I kind of miss the gadgets too. I kind of miss the campiness, like some of the campiness of the gadgets, and it's like where I wonder if Eon will be able to find like a good bridge between the two of like it being advanced and keeping up with the times, but still kind of keeping that campiness and
Yeah,
usefulness.
just our everyday technology right now would have been impressive. Like an iPhone would have been impressive as a gadget in a very early Bond film. Just the fact that you can like FaceTime and um but I think what I like about the gadgets is when things are hidden in everyday objects as well. Like the video games do a great job at representing like a grappling hook into a mobile phone. That
Oh,
it's just a fantastic gadget. Like you're using a mobile phone and that's what you're using to grapple like to rooftops and things like that. I think they could bring stuff like that back because people don't use grappling hooks in their everyday life. I'm sure I'm sure they could think of something, but I completely agree with you. The Brosnan era did a lot of gadgets. I think that's probably why I like them so much because well that's our bond. Whereas Daniel Craig didn't use. I didn't miss them so much in Casino Royale though. But I find as the new films progress, I'm like, I think the introduction or the reintroduction of gadgets would be much appreciated.
at least have like one or two. Like that would be really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't need to just overload the film with them. Just yeah, maybe just like exactly just a couple here and there.
What are your thoughts about how women and LGBTQ plus people are represented in the franchise?
Well, because like I said with the amount of films that exist, Bond kind of stays pretty similar as a character throughout all the films. Even though the actor changes, they do bring their own essence of Bond in their own unique films. But James Bond as a character is quite similar in all his renditions. Now, the Bond women, there are 24 films, and each film has two Bond women. To sometimes they have three, four, five. Sometimes there's even more than that. The amount of representation that the Bond women have had throughout the years is just phenomenal. Um, Perhaps some of it, especially in the early films, are a little bit dated by today's standards and would probably not show up in films today, like some of the plot devices. But at its time, just the fact that they were showcased so prominently, I think that that's absolutely extraordinary. I think that's just a wonderful media culture that we were given, and because there's just all these different personalities, just way of being, the way they carry themselves. It's just there's always going to be at least one that somebody's going to relate to. And I don't even think you didn't have to necessarily identify as female to relate to some of these Bond girls. You can really just see them and think, oh yeah, like I'm rooting for her. I'm on this journey with her, and I'm all for it. Is there progress to be made in like potential future films? Absolutely. I think there's a lot more diverse. There's even that much more diversity. There's so much more stories they could tell, and hopefully they do get there someday. When it comes to LGBTQ plus content in the Bond film specifically, I personally think there's still a lot of strides to be made there. I think when the new films, it when we're going to see new films get released, I think writing more diverse, like sexual or gender identity characters within the franchise would only help to expand the relatability and expand the cultural phenomenon that is the series itself. What we have so far, I think is a lot of you get some coded moments, some like queer coding. There's a few explicit Bond moments here and there. Like a lot of people might refer to Diamonds Are Forever to be one of the campier Bond films, and we also have just the iconic Grace Jones in A View to a Kill, who in real life she broke a lot of gender barriers, and it's just such a treat to have her in that film. Am I allowed to make a shout out?
Yeah, absolutely.
for for anyone who's really interested in what the Bond franchise really and how queer people or LGBT people relate to the Bond franchise, I would recommend License to Queer. He does a fantastic, but like phenomenal job to really see what Bond, what the Bond franchise really looks like through a queer lens. So even though some people might think, well, the Bond films may not be explicitly uh, like queer or explicitly or explicitly have LGBTQ content, as people who identify as such, you see films in your own kind of unique way, and you do spot things. You notice the coded messages that were most likely placed there by the writers. You see things, and you really start to realize that there's a lot more to it. Like there's a lot more to Bond than meets the eye. And he has License to Queer. You can find them on like Instagram and Twitter, and they have their own website that really showcases all these fantastic articles that he collaborated with LGBTQ plus fans of the series. So for anyone who for anyone who has the interest to really look up what Bond looks like in the lens of just a more queer or LGBT culture, I would certainly recommend checking them out.
Yeah, there's some great articles on there. I've read quite a few, and it's nice to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it certainly, like, even for me, like there's some things that even in the articles that I read, I'm like, oh, I didn't necessarily see it that way, but I definitely love that to some maybe a lot of people that it was that certain aspects of the Bond films came across in a more queer-friendly manner, and I think that's great. Like For Your Eyes Only actually features Caroline Cossey, who is a Bond girl that I cosplay. Despite being a cameo, I think her inclusion in the series is groundbreaking. She has like 2 seconds of screen time, um, but most of us who know the franchise know who she is. And I think that also broke a lot of barriers. And so if you really know where to look and you really know the franchise kind of in and out, you really do start to notice things that kind of showcase that this franchise is really for everyone.
Yeah, I think Eon has done, and is trying to continue being progressive. I mean, if anyone who's actually read the Fleming books, like Fleming didn't necessarily really paint, LGBTQ plus people like in a positive light, and as and since a lot of us are actually reading this with the Fleming reading challenge, I'm even like, oh, this is terrible, But at the time, I also recognize that it was written at a different time period where like the views of the world was a lot more different. But in that sense, like we can learn from these novels, like what not to be. And I think Eon as a movie franchise has done well, and they have had their problems and their ups and downs, but the fact that they're continuing to push forward and be more progressive, I think is really positive. Like even with female representation like coming up in this new movie, like I'm like there's a lot going on and I'm really excited. Like I'm ready for this movie. But I mean, moving forward, like after No Time to Die, how can Eon better serve, the LGBTQ plus community? Like, what would you love to see in future movies and like and in products or in anything that they create and provide for all of us?
So I actually haven't read the Bond novels, but I have heard that they certainly are quite they differ quite a bit from what Eon chose to do with the films, and I think even by like the 60s, 70s, and 80s films, that Eon did a great job at adapting it and making it more accessible and giving it more themes that would potentially like age better than the novels. But I'm sure the novels are still like you're doing the reading challenge, and I'm sure you're having a wonderful time. And it's great that people even today will read that and kind of recognize like, oh, I'm glad it's not like that anymore. So if you can kind of look back and even if you read something that may have had that have very dated concepts, as long as you really recognize like, oh, nope, I don't agree with any of this. It really just showcases how far we've come and how much Eon has actually done to bring this franchise to life. So moving forward, um, I would love to see. So when it comes to products, I would love for them. I know we've already talked about video games, but I know that video games don't necessarily have to follow the same rules as a movie. And I think if they really want to test the waters with representation and different writings and more diversity, I think the games, if they plan on making more, is a great place to start because the films do take a while to do, and video games also take a long time. But video games are also a little bit more accessible these days, and I think because there's such a younger demographic that the video games also have would really showcase and teach that there's just all kinds of people and anyone can really go on these adventures and and yes, I would love to see um, some LGBT, some like actual like protagonist main character or maybe like close secondary or supporting characters, I mean a main character who's LGBTQ plus, that would be fantastic, like the main Bond girl or a Bond ally. and even secondary characters, I think as long as like if they can truly write and incorporate them really well into a story, that there's just so much possibility there. There's so much potential for great stories for all of us to really resonate with.
I mean, like video games is I didn't even think about video games. Like that's a great you're right. That is a great platform to like really get the message out. I mean, they haven't put out a video game in so long, I guess I made me forget. So
And it's that whole conversation of how do we get the higher ups who kind of run the franchise? Like how do we get a younger demographic to be interested in the franchise? I don't know if I would be as interested into the franchise today if I didn't play the video games as a child. Like I that had a major impact on how I even view the series in general. And I think that's a great place to start. I think just the video game market is doing phenomenal, and if the Bond license can incorporate its way in there a little bit more, I think you'd get more of an audience, and you'd reach a lot more people.
I think it's time. It's time for a new game. Just give it to us. Um, how can the Bond community better serve the LGBTQ fans within our own community? I mean, we have a lot, we are so diverse, but what can we do to better help each other?
From my personal experience and meeting all of you lovely people on this online Bond community, it has been absolutely fantastic and very inclusive. I do think that people who really do just appreciate Bond or the franchise will just appreciate that anyone else like appreciates it as well, like, and appreciates it in their own way. So even though I'm trans and I'm very open about it, and I just kind of love to be a part of this community. They've been like it's just so respectful, so welcoming. And I would say to the advice moving forward from today is just like keep having that open mind and keep having that welcoming attitude, because it just serves to benefit all of us, and just to make people feel welcomed is such a wonderful thing. And just like keep at it. You're all doing fantastic. I absolutely, I truly appreciate it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same too. I mean, I've been into Bond for so long, but I was kind of very unsure about like, oh, I don't know about, starting a public, Instagram account and all that stuff. And everyone has been so welcoming. It's kind of surprising, but now you're right. It's nice that everyone has an open mind and there's so much in the franchise and in the community. Like there's plenty of room for everyone.
Absolutely.
Um, so I'd like to end with this final question for you. It's kind of similar to a Dear Abby situation. I've been ending all of my like ladies who bond videos with this, and it's asking for practical life advice, but in the bond world, and we'll call it Dear Moneypenny.
Okay,
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Dear Moneypenny, I'm attending a costume party and would like to dress like someone from the Bond franchise. What advice would you give on how to find some pieces to create the perfect outfit?
Well, my personal advice would be it depends on which Bond girl that really, if there's a specific Bond girl you want to embody or have kind of that style essence, it's always good to keep that in mind, because you'll start to see pieces or outfits when you go shopping that kind of remind you of that character. And that's kind of how I got started. I had a fixation on domino style and Claudine Auger and what she wears in the film, that pieces just started like kind of popping out like, oh, like this just that's exactly what I'm looking for. if you're looking to just have the style of a Bond girl, so you want to attend this costume party, and maybe you don't necessarily want to look like a specific character from a film, but you want somebody to look at you and say, "Oh, you are straight out of a like a '60s spy film." Thrifting is your best friend. And I think that even goes to, even if you want to embody specific characters, most of the outfits you see me wearing have been purchased or found at thrift stores because thrift stores are, they're all over. And it also depends on where you live, but where I currently live, there's a lot to choose from. And that way you can find gowns, casual wear, shoes, accessories, even swimsuits if you want to have that kind of like Bond girl essence. I would say yeah, and thrifting, and always remember, clothing can be altered. If you're in a store and you're seeing and you notice that there's um, this piece of clothing that really stands out as like something a Bond girl would wear, but it's just there's a little bit like it's not quite there yet. A lot of my cosplays are customized to kind of fit that style. So I will find gowns or clothing that I'm like, oh, it's so close, and it looks so close like that character. It just needs a few more adjustments. And I also love supporting local tailors, so I'll go to them, and it also kind of it also adds people into your experience. It's also something you get to share with who's helping you customize your clothing, and that's kind of how I see it as well. And when I do my photo shoots, that's a hobby I share with my mom. She's the one who takes most of my photos, and it's something I just love to share with her, and I love to share with everybody who has anything to do with me putting these outfits together. It's just so much fun to just share this experience. But yes, the advice I would give is even though Bond has succeeded throughout the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s, when you think of Bond, you really think of that 1960s kind of spy espionage essence. So I think if you find garments that look a lot like something from the 1960s, they tend to click with people a lot more, and you will be more recognized as that you look like somebody from a spy movie. But yes, I would say thrifting is your best friend. That is the best advice I can give.
That's some solid advice. Now to go to costume parties like soon.
I know.
Thank you, Spencie, for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, Jocelyn. I always adore chatting with you, and
Oh,
I love everything you do for the Bond community and like bringing all these female fans together to really just showcase what Bond means to, or the Bond franchise means to all of us. And so like
oh, thank you.
keep doing you. You're doing fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well, it was so much fun just chatting with you and just and talking about all these things. I can't wait to see your future cosplays. Now I have to wait for them.
Hopefully there'll be some in the near future, so you won't have to wait too long.
And so those who aren't following you already, like how can we find you?
Well, I'm mainly on Instagram, so
Okay.
you may follow me at Spencie Maria, and that's pretty much uh, as of right now. That's the only place where I kind of like showcase like my hobbies and my love for fashion and cosplay and everything that encompasses.
Awesome. So if you guys aren't already following Spencie, you should, because you're totally missing out. So thank you again so much for coming on and chatting with me. And thank you everyone else for watching this episode. And until next time, be safe, take care, and bye.